Tonight, the world marks the 70th anniversary of the UN Declaration on Human Rights at FIT that shines a spotlight on the abuses and injustices meted on humanity. In the Kenyan coast, allegations of forced disappearances have become commonplace, with the youth being the most affected. Relatives of the victims are pointing an accusing finger on the police, since many of the missing youth disappeared moments after being arrested by police. But the coast is also a prime recruiting ground for Al-Shabaab militia, who lure youth to join jihadists in Somalia, further complicating cases of missing youth at the coast. And just last Friday, police were again put on the spot after a Nairobi court temporarily barred the IG Joseph Boynet, as well as the DCI, from publishing on social media photos of suspects yet to be charged over various criminal allegations. The petitioner argues that posting of the suspects' photos ignores the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. But police say the pictures are taken when a decision to arraign the suspects is reached. We're in studio for more on this conversation. Lawyers Manuel Jose as well as Enoch Wabuba joining us live from our city centre studios. Enoch, your thoughts on this High Court decision now barring the IG as well as the DCI from posting mugshots on social media?
I think, Sophia, two things stand out from that decision and from the reports that at least I have come across. With respect to the said decision, I have not had gotten hold of the decision itself, but I understand the nature of the decision is a conservatory order. I would hesitate to go and delve deeper into the matter, obviously, because of the sub judice rule. However, if I may comment on a very general level, the police may give whatever justifications they have for this kind of thing they are doing, the mugshots and all.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it must be remembered that the right to have one presumed innocent until proven guilty is a right that is provided for under law and under our constitution. Is the right to fair hearing under Article 50 derogable? No, it is not. So if the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty is a right that has been recognized under our laws as a right that cannot be limited, I believe the police should tread carefully in making some of these decisions, maybe, not really, maybe, consult widely and seek proper advice so that whatever objectives they have in implementing the policies they want to implement and to secure the country are within the parameters, the contours of the law. Otherwise, such decisions are prone to challenge the way we have seen. We wait to hear from the court maybe in March when the full hearing resumes. And so I wouldn't go further than that.
All right. Yes, but even moving away from that, Manuel, even at the celebrations today, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights took a swipe at President Uhuru Kenyatta and his administration, saying there has been a few steps backwards, really, in terms of implementation of human rights in the country. I mean, we've seen in the recent past threats of closure to actual closure, threats of registration to actual registration of key players in the promotion of human rights. But even as this happens, the bigger question is how well are Kenyans versed with the Bill of Rights?
I think it's really true that government has been, speaking from both sides of its mouth by saying that it supports the fight on, or rather the ensures that human rights are upheld. At the same time, it's the one that actually is number one in violating the same. I'll give an example of my senior Miguna, who was deported back to Canada. This is a case of human rights violation and denial of those rights. I think it's one of classic cases where government has blatantly and without any shame refused to grant the rights of a person. And then you can count so many other cases which are related to human rights violations, coming out of government and especially the political class. I think the civil society, you know, you remember last, when we had the elections, they purported to deregister non-government organizations which support or rather fight for human rights violations in the country. This was also a step backwards, because if a government can decide in the present day to deregister an non-government organization that, you know, supports the dignity of human beings, then there is a problem. And I believe that is a big problem in the administration of the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. There is much that is needed to be done. They do not only, because we have these laws on paper, we need to actually see government enforcing them. We need to see government respecting its people, even as it actually discharges its mandate. We need to see government actually supporting the civil societies by allocating even funds to these organizations which have progressively fought for this space of human rights, so that they can actually ensure that we have a society that respects the dignity and the human rights as enshrined under the UDHR. So I believe there is nothing much that has been done, because if the case of Miguna has not been solved to date, his citizenship is at stake, and we all know that he's a Kenyan citizen, but he has become a persona non grata. And I believe those are the issues that show that government really is selective in actually enforcing the law, at the same time in actually fighting or ensuring that people enjoy the human rights as it's required under the law.
All right, and what also came out today, because the fact that during the controversial January 30th swearing-in of ODM leader Raila Odinga, TV stations that aired the event were switched off, preventing them from covering the event. Switched off from several days, actually weeks later. Bloggers like yourself also came under fire during the election period, and many said that was a gross violation of human rights. What is your take on the same?
Sophia, by their very nature, human rights are both indivisible and they more or less depend on each other. In the sense that a violation of one set of human rights or freedom, fundamental freedom as enshrined in the Constitution. Usually, when you have a government that is hell-bent on violation of rights, it would not go for one. It would go for one to cover up that. It would go for another to cover up that. It would go for another. So it is usually systemic, and it usually spreads just the way it did in our case. But I think on the overall government, from the whole of at least if there's one thing they should take from today's celebrations, it should be that government's key roles is security, as has been appreciated by especially the police, but also fundamentally, and expressly so recognized under our Kenyan Constitution, government's fundamental role also lies in protecting and promoting human rights. Can the two of them be performed all at the same time? Yes, these are mandates that can be performed all at the same time, and the government has the machinery, it has the resources to ensure that even in its ambitions and desires to ensure the people are protected, if at all that is if that stated objective is the real objective, it can still have that realized within the parameters of the law and by abiding to the rule of law. You cannot have a situation where government is desirous of performing one of its obligations, yet on the other hand, another very fundamental obligation it has under the Constitution, it is bound, government is bound under Article 20 of the Constitution to do these things. So you cannot say you have on the one hand a government that is very keen on ensuring there is security of its people, but at the same time, it wants to do that or to attain that objective by all means without respect and without regard to all other mandates that it's been given by the people of Kenya. I think both of those two mandates it has, it can attain them as a government. It has the resources If it's goodwill, I think the president has exhibited enough goodwill on these matters. The government agencies, various government agencies involved should just follow the cue and perform.
All right, and okay, just before we come to the end of the show, I think we all miss our lead reporter, Sophia Oduna, who is out on leave. You've been speaking to Michelle tonight. But Manuel, just to get your closing comments on the same, even as the political class tries to push for another referendum in the country, a different constitutional change, what must we do as a nation to safeguard the Bill of Rights? Thank you,
Michelle. I think there is much that is needed to be done. As a country, we are not yet there. Yes, we have proper, I don't think we have more, we need more legislation. We need to enforce the laws that we already have. We need to enforce the Bill of Rights as is provided for under Chapter 4 of the Constitution. If government is serious in ensuring that we fulfill or rather we comply with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we actually enacted as part of our laws, that is part of our laws, then we need to actually start with the laws that we have, start with the Bill of Rights as contained in the Constitution, ensure that it's enforced, starting from, arrested persons who have been suspected to have committed criminal offenses. The law is very clear as to how they are supposed to be handled. The law is very clear as to how the trial is supposed to be conducted, how the police are supposed to conduct their investigation. So I believe that if the government actually takes serious the Bill of Rights as it is at the moment, then we can be able to actually achieve that purpose. Even as we agitate for a referendum, I believe much of what is ailing the human rights sector, it's the unwillingness of government to actually grant these rights, especially when government is on the receiving side. You've seen this during the political period when government is, when people are raising issues. You remember the killing of some serious figures towards the end of, prior to the elections, and then the civil society was on the streets demonstrating. This was rubbing the government on the wrong side, and they did what they had to do. And I believe we need to actually support the civil society, and it needs to do what it's doing to ensure that indeed government is put on check. And you see, that is the purpose of the civil societies, to ensure that government follows the law as it's required in handling human beings.
All right. And even as we wind up, I was asking earlier, how well versed are Kenyans with the Bill of Rights or the rights contained in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Because many are asking, where do human rights begin? Do they begin at home? Do they begin from the government? Do they begin from civil, human rights defenders?
Sophia, just from the word human rights, they are human rights because they are rights of people, they are rights of humans. It's Nelson Mandela who said, if you deny someone a human rights, their human rights, you're denying them or you're challenging their humanity. So the human rights begin, they inhere in us, they exist with us, whether we are in the home, we are on the streets. The human rights are human rights, and they are with us wherever we are. Perhaps the more fundamental question that you've raised there is, are Kenyans aware of some of these rights in detail? And I think civil society is doing the much they can with, of course, the limitations within the constraints and limitations they have in their space. Government has also, through its constitutional agents like the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, they have also done their bit. But is there room for more? Yes, I think there is room for more awareness, because some of these rights are best enforced and best realized when people know them. You cannot enforce, you cannot go to court enforcing what you do not know. You cannot even approach a lawyer to represent you in court when you do not know that there is a violation of human rights. Right. So it is fundamental that all these actors up their game in terms of awareness, and I think in the end, most Kenyans are going to benefit from this.
All right, many thanks, lawyer and blogger Eno Kobobo. They're live from our city centre studio. I'll make sure to let my colleague Sophia Nuna know she has a big fan in you. Also in studio, lawyer Manuel Jose. Many thanks for watching The Big Story tonight. My name is Michelle Ngele Obiambo. Good evening.